Hello and welcome to another video. I'm here in the English Lake District. I'm in the Eden Valley at the moment, but over the next few days I'm going to be navigating in the fells and comparing these different types of compass. So join me for a breakdown of 4 different types of magnetic compass and 2 different types of electronic compass. Whilst I'm navigating with these compasses this week, I'm going to be scoring them. I'm going to be scoring them for taking a bearing on a map, following a bearing, sighting on a bearing to a distant object, and general ease of use. So for each of those factors, I'm going to give them 5 points, or a maximum of 5 points, to give a total maximum score of 20. So let's have a look at the candidates. So we've got an inexpensive military sighting type compass. This one's made by Bresser. It was under the National Geographic label. This is another military type sighting compass. This has actually got a lens in the bottom here. We've got the Silva Ranger. We've got the Suunto MC2 sighting compass, and then we've got the OS Locate app that also has a built-in Silva compass. You can go onto the military bezel there and onto OS Locate map that actually gives you a compass bearing and your location as a 6-figure grid reference. And finally, on the Garmin Fenix 3 watch here, we have a simple compass there. So I've been practicing with these compi, over the last few weeks and getting used to all of their features, and I'll take you through using them in the Lake District fells tomorrow. And perhaps it might give you a little bit of hand if you were deciding whether to buy one of these or try one out in the future. So let's just do some close-up features. This is the Breser military sighting compass. It's got a simple needle on with the bearings built in. The red one around the inside is actually the 360 degrees normal bearing. Around the outside is the rads around the outside there. And important thing about this compass is you use it by sighting up the rear guideline with the sighting wire there, and then you look down through the lens to read off the bearing inside. And a very important thing about this compass is it hasn't got any sort of rotating bezel, so that might limit its use in the field. This one typically costs around £10 and it's under various labels, but I bought this one, you'll see it in my last video, just for £5 from Aldi. Now this style of military compass is very widely available on Amazon. It tends to range in price from about £13 to about £20, and it's sold under various labels, but they're pretty much all the same really. They look like the same model. So the features of this, to help with steady, it's got a leveling bubble here, and importantly, unlike the Bresser National Geographic one, it has got a rotating bezel. This has got no ratchet on it at all, and it feels a little bit cheap to use, but so far in use it's proved reliable and pretty accurate. And to use this one, you hold up the gun sight, metal gun sight, against the back there and line it up against your object that you want to view through the sighting glass there, and then you, I don't know if you can see that, you view the bearing inside. And of course that's for sighting, but you can use it like you would a traditional base plate compass, where you might put in your bearing there, for instance, that is 320 degrees, and as per normal you would rotate yourself around. There's a little bit of a drag on this one. It's like the damping fluid inside is very heavy. It's slow to settle, but it does settle eventually, and you would put the north needle aligned with the arrow there, and then you can follow your bearing. Silva base plate compass is the type of compass that many are familiar with, and certainly the type I've used in the last few years. It's very lightweight, very compact, relatively inexpensive, costs around £16 I believe. So we've got the usual rotated bezel. We can move around, very simple to put red in the shed. We've got a simple declination correction scale there, and our direction of travel arrow. Pretty simple to use. Next we've got the Suunto MC2, a little bit more sophisticated, combines a base plate compass. We've got a declination arrow there, the black arrow, you can see that moving. And to take a sighting with this, you look through the little plastic sighting arrow at the back and try and line up that arrow with the line on the mirror there, and then you'll bring the mirror down to read the bearing. A little bit of a problem is that you'll see when I tilt the mirror down, the actual compass needle moves, and it depends on the angle that you hold the mirror. You'll get about a 5 degrees change of direction according to the angle, so you've got to be fairly constant in your use there. So you can just look at the top there and check, and look at you've got it at the angle that shows the needle still in the shed there. You can see the difference there. So a little bit more sophisticated, costs quite a lot more, around £42 I believe. But a lovely compass, really nice to use. So the OS Locate app has obviously partnered with Silva. I apologise for the glare on that. And I can't imagine how I would take a bearing onto a map with that. The compass seems to definitely work well enough. It's a tiny bit glitchy there, doesn't settle too well, but okay in use. And we've got that other feature there where we can actually have a bearing with our 6-figure grid reference there. Pretty good fun. And lastly, and very handy, is the compass that's on the Garmin Fenix 3 watch here. You can see the bearing there and that top number there. So again, I don't know how I would take a bearing on a map with that. I could certainly follow a bearing, and I could kind of have a go at sighting on a distant object. I've tried that a few times. Now, one important point, I'm not going to mention magnetic declination and ease of using the magnetic declination at all in this video, except suffice to say that the Silva Ranger here has a small scale at the back for magnetic declination, and the Suunto MC2 has a mechanism where you can actually correct it semi-permanently by undoing a screw and rotating the bezel inside. And the reason I'm not going to discuss that in this video is because it's 2021, I'm in the English Lake District, and the current magnetic declination for this area is only 14/60ths of a degree. Suffice to say, it's a very small part of a degree. Grid north that I'm seeing on the map is also matching magnetic north, which makes things very convenient. Okay, we'll see you tomorrow on the fells. So here we are in the beautiful valley of Boredale in the northeast Lake District. We're going up here onto Place Fell, and I accept that when we get to the junction at the top here at Boredale House, Any compass that just gives you a kind of simple confirmation of north, south, east and west is going to be okay.
They all look so different.
Team power. So here I am at this rather busy intersection of Boredale House. So with the Bresser compass here, I'm going to take a bearing from the map. I'm going to follow that bearing and I'm going to sight on the distant summit of Place Fell. And this is the path junction here. It's fairly indistinct. But it's a fantastic spot. The first thing that I've done is set the map here. Our destination, Place Fell, is up here. I make that to be about 355 degrees. And confirming that with the sighting to the summit. That's pretty much right. Sighting with this compass is where its strength lies. Really, really good for that. You look through this notch here, through the hairline here at your target, and then read off the bearing. So I've changed the bearing to be exactly north. That reflects where the summit of Place Fell is. And following the bearing isn't absolutely great because that needle is quite broad. And I think I can follow that to something like 5-degree accuracy. The needle is very unsettled, not well damped. It's reflecting the economy nature of this compass really. I think it'd be okay for good weather, casual navigation, but I wouldn't want to trust it with my life at all. So I think for following a bearing, I'm going to give it 2 out of 5. Right, now we're descending from Place Fell. That's Allswater in the distance. And when we're coming down from the summit here, we're following this path here. So we're moving on to the next compass. And I'll call this the Proster compass because that's one of the popular brands that rebadge this model. And to take a bearing, we would place the edge of the compass along the path line there. And then we're in more familiar territory here. We have a rotating bezel, but it's not transparent through the base plate all the way through. So we need to kind of like try and approximate it onto the vertical grid lines there. Might help to overlay a ruler or something over the top, but I think that's fairly accurate there. Visualize that with the north grid lines. And then to follow that bearing, we will just place the green north needle into the triangle and away we go. So I make that bearing now to be 40 degrees, 42 degrees, and like the other military compass, it's in 5-degree increments, but I think this one's a little bit clearer, being transparent. The criticism I'd have of this is it's a very lightweight, cheap feeling bezel, and it will be easy to move. So using this type of compass, you'd be best to remember your bearing that you took and keep checking that it hasn't moved and been knocked, and then you would just place the green needle in the shed, and you can also, I don't know if you can see that, read it off inside for a more accurate following, or if you wanted to lift it up to your eyes. Yeah, good. So taking a bearing on a map, I would rate this compass as 3 out of 5. Now when following this bearing, it's fairly clear to see and pretty easy to keep the green and the clear arrow aligned there. And a good feature of this compass is that you can close the lid there and you can view the bearing on the with the inside of the compass rose there. You can clearly see 30 and 60 there, so I could even follow that. But again, a little fault is this rotating bezel sticks out the side, and it's super easy to move, and it's not that easy to see the numbers on the inside there to check that it hasn't actually altered. So yes, you definitely would need to remember the bearing that you've taken. No, I haven't just used this compass today. I've been practicing with it at other times. But for following a bearing, I would, with that worry about the bezel moving, I would give this compass the 3.5. Yeah. I think it would make a nice spare. I'll talk about it more in the practicality, but it's pretty heavy. It's made out of some sort of alloy, and it's quite a chunk, but I think it's designed to be pretty robust. What have you found, Georgia? Nice. So I'm going to take a sighting now on that distant rock. So what I would do is line up the gun sight at the back through the viewing lens there, and then I would keep that on target and peer through the lens at the bottom. Make that to be 8 degrees. As a sighting compass, this is absolutely fantastic. And the secret is, I think, to a sighting compass being very accurate and easy to use, is that there's no movement between keeping your eye on the target and taking the bearing. And that's very good at that, because you just keep it that, and then you just bring the lens up to your eye, and away you go. I'm sorry about the wind noise. I hope this is not interfering too much. Yeah, so as a sighting compass, I would give this compass, the Proster, ooh, mind you, it's in 5 degree increments. I would give it 4. No! This is This is This is Seathwaite Fell in Borrowdale. So what I want to do using the Silva Ranger is take a bearing from Stockley Bridge, and using the Silva Ranger, its simplicity itself, just turn the bezel to line up with the grid lines and read the bearing off here. And I make that to be 259 degrees. These are in 2 degree increments, but you can easily see the spaces in between. So for the Silva Ranger, for taking a bearing on the map, 5 out of 5. Well, move straight into following a bearing with the Silva Ranger. It's the shed at the bottom is very broad, and it's very easy to keep that, or the needle, in the shed, and it's a very stable needle and very responsive. It's a slightly short compass, but I can see the direction of travel arrow there easy, and there's not much of a parallax error issue. So in other words, looking from here to here, it's not too bad. That's the bearing I'm following here, just up the valley. So for following a bearing, 4.5 out of 5. It's great conditions here going over Stockley Bridge, but this is where we would have confirmed our bearing for the path direction over the pass up there. So when you're sighting on a distant object like the Silva Ranger, you need to pick a prominent feature, and in this case it's that white building there past my black dog's tail. That's the Rosthwaite village. There's a hotel there. So what I'll do is get the direction of travel arrow pointing towards that hotel, and I'll bring it smoothly down, and I would have rotated the bezel to get red in the shed, and I make that to be 39 degrees. And as long as you get that movement there nice and smooth and accurate, it's pretty easy to do. So we'll give the Silva Ranger, what do you think? 4 out of 5. 4 out of 5. Yeah? And we'll thank the prominent local features and my beautiful wife. We're at this point here now where the path meets the waterfall. Up here we've got Green Gable, and out of sight is Great Gable, and we're following Styhead Gill. If I wanted to confirm my direction of travel by taking a bearing off the map with the Suunto MC2, it's a fairly straightforward, just get this level, it's a fairly straightforward operation. Turn, keep the edge of the compass on the direction of travel, ignore the compass needle for now, turn the bezel until the direction arrows are lined up with the grid lines of the map, remembering that currently there's negligible magnetic declination, and then I've got 220 degrees. Following a bearing with the Suunto MC2 is easy and intuitive. Just simply hold it in front of you, and you don't have to look over at the top of the compass to check that Fred is in the shed or Red is in the shed. You can simply look into the mirror as you travel. It's a slightly bulky object for doing that though. So for the Suunto MC2, for a bearing on the map, it's 5 out of 5, but for going into the direction of travel, reading a bearing as you go, my personal opinion is, with its slight bulk and the need to keep that mirror there at the correct angle, I would give it 4.5. Sighting with the MC2 is a one-piece movement. What you do is line up the little notch at the rear there with your sighting object, in this case again the white building in the distance down at Rosthwaite, and keeping it targeted on that object, you can read the bearing off in the reflecting mirror there. So it's quite stiff and it's pretty difficult to do one-handed. And you can see that reflected with red in the shed there. That's just there perfectly. And we can read the bearing off to be 39 degrees. So I've got the same result there as I did with the Silva Ranger, even though it's a one-piece action. But I would say overall sighting with the Suunto MC2 is 5 out of 5. It's what it's built for. It's very intuitive. The only thing that you have to watch a little bit is where the needle is sitting changes slightly with the angle of the mirror, so you just have to be very consistent with the mirror angle. Now moving on to the Garmin watch. For actually taking a bearing on the map, not so great. Let's try that. The only way of approximating that is on the ground, is to get the map set using the watch. So it's pointing north to that direction, so that's the map set now. And what I would do then is line my watch up with my chosen direction of travel, and that's given me 231 degrees. So the Suunto MC2, excuse me, gave me 220 degrees for that direction. So I've already made an error there of around 10 degrees. So for the Garmin watch, for taking a bearing onto a map, it's 1 out of 5. Checking a bearing with the Garmin Fenix 3 is very easy and very quick to do. However, it's very subject to small wrist movements, of course, and it's not that comfortable to keep it in place on your arm. But for a quick check, general direction, it's great. But for following a bearing, for serious mountain navigation, I will give it 2 out of 5. So I'm going to have a try now of taking a bearing. So I make that to be 206 degrees. I'll check that against the Suunto MC2. So on the Suunto MC2 I also made that 210 degrees, and I didn't collaborate at all. I didn't even check the bearing on the Suunto as I'm doing it, but I got the same bearing. So that was a little bit more accurate than I expected, really, with the Garmin watch. However, for general practicality, for taking a bearing on a distant object, I would give it the Garmin Fenix 3 out of 5. We're here below the cliffs of Great End, and we're going to take this path down Grains Gully back down to Seathwaite. And this is a trial of using the OS map compass. So we're just off map here at this location here, and we want to take a bearing using this. So the only way really to do this is to set the map. There you go, that's the map set. And then we're going down here, and that's to try and take a bearing that direction there. So that would be, so we'll try and follow that bearing. So not entirely practical, it was popping off there. So for the compass on your phone, is a practical mountain navigation solution, 1 out of 10 for taking a bearing off a map. So following a bearing, we're using the Silva compass built into the phone. If I have to remember the bearing, I have to try and keep the north needle on that point. Not that easy really, and it's pretty unstable. And of course you've got a delicate object in your hand. But for a reference there, it works. Grains Gill is absolutely lovely down here. So for the Silva compass, following a bearing, practical navigation in the mountains, 1 out of 10. Okay as a backup. And then finally we'll move quickly onto taking a bearing on a distant object. Oh, there we are, looking down to Derwentwater and Keswick nestling below Skiddaw, and I made that to be due north. So for taking a bearing on a distant object, 2 out of 10. Let's wrap up and summarise. So the Bresser lensatic compass, practicality, I'm going to give it 2. That's an overall score of 10 out of 20. The Proster sighting compass, practicality 3. It's a good compass, bit heavy, overall 13.5 out of 20. The Silva Ranger compass, practicality 5, overall 19 out of 20. The Suunto MC2, practicality 4, fantastic compass, but a bit bulky, moving parts. That gives that 18.5 out of 20. Using the OS Locates app compass feature, practicality 1, an overall score of 5 out of 20. And for the compass app on the watch, that's a practicality score 3 out of 5 and an overall score out of 9. So I acknowledge that these two military style compasses are perhaps economy models, and you could do better with the real IM, such as the Commander, but the overall favourites are the Suunto MC2 and the Silva Ranger. Great all-round compass, great if you're starting out, perhaps for the bit more advanced user that specifically wants this sighting feature. And of course the electronic ones come with a risk because they could run out of battery, but the watch in particular was a great backup. I wouldn't use the compass app at all on the phone, but I do use the Garmin mapping app as a backup and confirmation sometimes. So I hope you've enjoyed watching this. Thank you for coming with me on all these great spots around the Lake District. Please like this video if you enjoyed it at all, and I'd be really pleased if you put something on the comments below regarding your experience with using any of these compasses or any other types. Thanks again for watching.